Hi crafty friends, it's Donna here from Donna is Playing Paper, and I have a set of 8 cards for you today that use one feature product and 3 general techniques with slight variations for 8 cards in all. Let's get started, shall we? I'm going to be using this scene frame metal die for all of the cards. When you run this through your die cutting machine, you get all of the pieces that you can see there, as well as a thin frame for around each piece. To start with, I'm going to be using just the frame. I have a sheet of plain white cardstock and I'm just laying the die down on top of that to get an idea of where the sun is going to sit. I'm not being very exact, but I wanted to have some yellows roughly where the sun was. Once the sun was in place, I've gone ahead and ink blended a range of inks in different greens running down the area that's going to be fields, and then some blues and into purples and pinks for the sky. I don't need to be too precious about how evenly I cover the paper because I'm going to come back and disturb the surface later. Now that the ink blending is done, I want to add a little bit more, and so I'm mixing some white gouache with water until it's a nice thick but still liquid consistency. And then I'm changing my mind and deciding to add some clean water first. When I add droplets of clean water, I just spray the water into the palm of my hand, squeeze my hand up to wet it, and then flick onto the paper. It's good to have some paper towel ready. If you're using watercolour paper, you can let this sit for quite a while, but this is regular cardstock, and so I'm getting that water straight off. And then I'm going to flick that white gouache mixture all over the page. While that's drying, I'm going to prepare my frame. I've cut this paper rose scene die twice from black card, and I'm gluing those together with tiny dots of glue. Once that's done and the panel's dry, I can repeat the process of the tiny dots and add that frame. I'm positioning it so that the sun covers that yellow bit, and then I'm going to trim later so that the border around the outside is even. I've added my panel onto a white card base, and I'm going to use one of these embossed cut-apart sheets in a nice bright blue to say happy birthday as a sentiment. I'm popping that up with a bit of tape. If ink blending isn't your thing, perhaps you'd like something a bit faster. How about ink swiping? Small ink pads are really great for this technique, which is quick and easy and quite organic. This time, the sentiment is a happy birthday, also from Paper Rose Studio. The bottom layer is vellum, and then I've used white cardstock for the top. But perhaps those stripes weren't for you, and you want something quick and easy, but softer and more organic. Then, how about a little bit of ink smushing? I'm using distress inks and then smushing them onto some packaging before spraying them with water and turning the packaging over onto my card. I used watercolour cardstock for this version. That yellow was pretty bright, so I did end up tapping a little bit of it back off. with some paper towel. Then I added a couple of greens at the bottom and a couple of blues at the top. When I was happy with where things were, I did bring in my heat tool to set each layer. All of that water on top of the watercolour card was making it bow a little bit, and so to counteract that, I sprayed the back. The water on both sides helped level the paper out, and also it stuck a little bit to my glass mat, which also helped. Once that was dry, I trimmed it down, mounted it onto a dark green panel, and then trimmed so that I had just a small border. This time I'm making my frame in white, which gives a lovely subtle look. This sentiment is from the Black and White Sentiments and says, "Go confidently in the direction of your dreams." And I thought it was such a lovely sentiment for this sunset scene. That's all for the cards using just the outline. Don't forget you could also use a patterned paper in the background and make it even easier. Now let's get on to some different cards using all of the parts. I've cut my frame in black and then cut the fields out in various shades of green so that I have lots of jigsaw puzzle pieces. I'm going to mix and match those and make several cards today. Once you have the frame glued down, it's simply a matter of gluing in the pieces like a jigsaw puzzle, and a fairly easy puzzle at that. I've done die inlays before that have been much more complicated. For this first card, I've gone directly onto the card so that our scene has a white border. I've layered up 2 of this thanks sentiment and direct stuck those to the panel. For an extra border, you can do your jigsaw onto a piece of coloured cardstock and then put the whole thing down onto your card to give a little bit more dimension. You could pop this whole panel up with layers of card or tape if you wanted some more dimension on your card. Here are 2 examples where I've done just that with different sizes of border. So far, our borders have always been black and white, and they do give a very good stained glass effect. But this time around, I'm going to use some shimmer card, including some silver, to represent the LED lighting in a stained glass window to make my card. I'm hoarding this paper, and so I lined up and individually trimmed the papers for each of these windows. On to the third possibility. Instead of using the frame, we can use just the cutouts. I've cut these in white. In fact, these are the leftovers from the watercolour card. I'm just showing you a little bit of early footage, with the frame still on my desk. I'm using some picket fence pounces to add some colour to the different pieces. You could do this any way you like, but what I'm doing is adding one colour across the whole piece and then adding another shade into a corner or along one edge to darken it and have some variation. For the sky, I've gone with the same colours that I used in my ink blended version, adding some purple and even a little bit of pink to my sky. I loved the purple. The pink, I wasn't so sure about, and I went and covered that up again. Once I've got those all blended, I'm lining them up using the frame, and then I'm adding a piece of press and seal to the front. I can then flip that whole image over and add some tape to each of the pieces. Once that tape is on, I'm pressing down firmly at the bottom of the card so that the press and seal is well attached to my card, and then flipping the whole panel down like a hinge. Then it's simply a matter of flipping it back up again and carefully laying it in place. All of those jigsaw puzzle pieces will stick to the paper, but the outline which has no adhesive on it, will come straight back up again. I decided to give this card a border, and so I'm using a couple of pierced rectangle dies to cut that, and I've added a happy birthday from the Rainbow Poppies sentiment sets. I love the way the pieces float so neatly on the page. So there's one die used 3 different ways to make 8 cards. I hope you've enjoyed this video and that you'll come back for more. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I'll be back soon with some more cards. Bye for now.